This employee reached out and he was upset because his dog had passed away. When he reached out and told me that, I immediately knew the importance of that, right? Like I knew that that dog had gone through so much with him and things had happened in his life and how important it was. And so Sunday came around and Monday was work and I reached out and I said,
welcome to Analog Leader Podcast. Our guest today is Trenton Nelson. Trenton, tell us about yourself.
Well, about me, so obviously my name's Trenton Nelson. I'm the Director of Customer Experience for a company called Rocky Mountain ATV. It's an e-commerce company based out of central Utah, Payson. So been with them for almost 10 years now. It's been a little bit, which is good. It's a great company to be with, and I've really enjoyed it so far. That's
awesome. So we were talking before you came on the air here about all the different aspects of the business. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. There's a lot going on there. The cool thing about the business, I will say, is that it's like a town within a business, right? We do everything, which is awesome, and I really love being there because of that. But my direct role is any customer facing. So I manage a call center. I've got about 75 employees, and then I have retail locations. I have a retail store there in Payson, one out in Winchester, Kentucky, help out the dealerships. I have a travel team on the East Coast and the West Coast. I got a back-end order processing team and do some of the marketing program stuff like that. But yeah, there's a lot going on. It's always different every day, which is good.
So making the customer happy is probably one of the biggest things that you have to do all the time.
It's huge, yeah. I mean, it's the base of our business, right? Like all of our stuff is e-commerce and online. So customer focused and making sure that their experience is good from the call center side, but then also making sure that like the website side and the flow on the website and, it's quick and easy to check out and getting them taken care of is a big piece of it. But yeah, I mean, our daily focus is, what can we do to make our customers happy, whether it's interacting with customers or not. But a big piece of it is obviously that customer interaction and making it feel like it's seamless. And we understand the importance of that for sure.
Right. So a customer has a choice. They get their parts from you, they get their products from you, or they get them somewhere else.
Yeah, then there's lots of choices, right? Like there's big retails. Amazon's one that we constantly battle with, and a couple other big companies out there. But yeah, they have a choice, so we've got to make the choice easy for them.
So as customers come and go through your location, what is the general experience that you want them to get? What do you want them to say about Rocky Mountain ATV?
I really am looking for them to enjoy the people. Like they can, like you said, they can buy a part anywhere, right? The minimum expectation for a customer is that they can go somewhere, purchase the part, leave, and then put it on their machine or whatever it may be. What they're not expecting is that customer interaction, that human interaction, that is second to none, right? Like if a customer calls in and they need handlebars because they're bent or whatever it may be, they bent those handlebars for a reason. They didn't just bend on their own, right? So being curious and understanding, did you crash? Are you okay? Is your son okay? What's going on? And that type of conversation is what takes us to the next level and really what we're pushing for.
So that is where it really comes into, you've got to make sure that you maintain a certain culture throughout your organization where the associates that report to you that do the actual work feel like they are a part of something.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. I mean, we talk about a lot of times the customer interaction and I just brought up like, okay, if they come in and something happened, asking them, be curious about it. But I think that same mentality is a leadership mentality, right? Like my employees are my customers and they're the ones that I take care of and they take care of our customers. And if I don't take care of them, I can't expect them to do the same for me, right? Like, and at the end of the day, the customers are important. So when an employee comes to me and I asked them how their day was in passing, like, oh, it's okay. Same curiosity, right? That same interaction is like, oh, why is it okay? What's going on? Why is it not great? And ask them about their weekend or their family or whatever it may be. Yeah, it trickles all the way to the customer. And so we've got to make sure that we carry that through for sure.
I love that you said your employee is your customer. I've tried to tell that to people in different ways. I think that when an associate feels like they're important, then they feel like not just a customer, but they feel like I really have a stake in this company.
Oh, for sure.
And when you treat someone that way as your customer, tell me what are the main motivations that come to your mind as far as how do you connect with a person that way?
Man, that's my mind's going crazy. It's a loaded gun, but I think I'm genuinely a curious person, and I feel like it rubs off, and so I really want that to be, like I want people to talk to me and know it's not just going to be like a superficial quick interaction, right? Like I'm genuinely there because I want to be successful and I want people around me to be successful. And I'm there all day. I enjoy what I do and I want them to feel the same way. So when I have that interaction, I am curious about them. I do want to know how their day's going. And if they say their weekend wasn't great or they had something going on, I want to know why and I want to know what's important to them, because at the end of the day, what's important to them is why they're here, right? Like we as leaders are creating this culture and this environment to make people feel invited, and someone's dog might be their motivation, right? Like that might be the reason they're at work, so they can go and hang out with their dog. And if I don't understand that, then we're on completely different pages. And so even though that might not be important to me, really interacting with them and understanding that is what creates a great culture and willingness to have that conversation and not just be rushed. Obviously there's times where you're busy and you're running, but if you don't have time, then circling back up to that conversation and helping them understand it's meaningful and helping them understand that, you know, I do want to know about you and what's going on is huge. It also, like, I think a lot of people think having that conversation with their direct employee, right? Like I've got 4 levels under me. And anytime I'm talking to my employee about their employee, I always will pull them up and look at their picture and make sure I know exactly who they are. So when I'm passing later on a reference, I can have that same conversation. And like, hey, I heard about this. Is everything going on or is everything okay? And call them by name. It just makes a huge difference, right? Like I want them to know that they're comfortable with me and I'm comfortable with them all the way up and all the way down. So
sure. That's incredibly perceptive to realize that there's different motivations for everybody who's there. One person might be single and has a dog, and that's, as you said, that dog is the most important thing in their life.
Yeah.
You may have father there that has 3 kids that are involved in baseball or something like that.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what the motivation is for them to be in your workspace, then it's hard for you to motivate them to the ends that they're looking for, correct?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you're right. It is, you've got to help motivate them to the end, but you also have to know what's important. And so here's a great example. I had an employee that a couple weeks ago, his dog had passed away, and this employee, his dog is his child. I have 3 boys and they all play baseball. It's funny you brought that up because that's my life. I have no life outside of baseball, and I see my wife at 10 o'clock every night basically. But this employee reached out and he was upset because his dog had passed away. And I am an animal person, but I'm not that type of an animal person. I have a dog and I love my dog, but it's not my world. But this dog is his world, right? And so knowing and having those conversations, interactions with him, when he reached out and told me that, I immediately knew the importance of that, right? Like I knew that dog had gone through so much with him and things that happened in his life and how important it was. And so I sent him a box of Crumble and was like, hey, I'm super sorry. And then he called me and he was super upset. But Sunday came around and Monday was work. And I reached out and I said, hey, do you want to take tomorrow off? Do you just like take a day, relax? I know everything's going on with your dog. This just happened. And that he came in the next day and was upset in my office and crying and just thankful. And I think that type of an interaction, like if I didn't know him and take the time to understand really what's important in his life, I could have never had that interaction with him. But by having those passive conversations, really talking to him, it's helped me know, like, again, this is important in your life. And when these things happen, that might not be that big of a deal to me, it's a huge deal to you. And so I can have those conversations and understand what each person is looking for and what's important. So
sure. Very few people are living their dream at work.
Yeah.
Very few people are doing the job that they wanted to do their entire life. You know, when they were 12 years old, they didn't look back and say, I really want to work for a parts store.
For sure.
It's not their dream.
Yeah.
So to get in and learn those kind of things, I mean, I'm really curious, how did you know about the dog? How did you know about the relationship that this person had and why it was so important to them?
Again, it's those little conversations, right? Like Mondays, half of my day is talking to people, and it sounds ridiculous, and I push all my leaders to do this too. But Mondays, the first part of our days is walking around and, hey, how was your weekend? What's going on? How are you? And I make all my rounds on Mondays because a lot happens over the weekend, and we don't really know what's going on. And I will literally like schedule the time to have those conversations because, again, like if I don't take the time to make myself understand what's going on, then I won't know. And that situation specifically was all these passive conversations leading up to it, right? Like I knew on the weekends he'd take his dog out, or on the weekends he'd do whatever, and that dog was so important to him. And it was all a buildup. So when I knew that happened, man, he doesn't have that companion that he's had all these weekends. I know how important it is. And so again, it's making the time to do it. And of course, Monday mornings, it's our busiest day. I mean, everyone rides all week and all weekend. They break stuff and they want to buy it Mondays. They have it for the following weekend, right? Like it's our busiest day. But it's also so important to me to have those conversations that even though I have a stack of work I've got to get to, I want to do that first because that sets the tone for the entire week.
Sure.
So.
I think that's a real good idea to have a plan to do that. Monday works great for you. I think that everyone that employs people, that supervises people, manages them, whatever you want to call it, I think if they have a plan to make sure that they're making that kind of connection, that's when it happens. If we don't make a plan for something, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it won't happen. You're going to get caught up in the day-to-day, right? Like, we are all so busy. We've got so much going on. But my number one asset, 1,000%, is my employees. Like, there is no question. And you think of it monetarily, but also just people. You know what I mean? Like, I really care about people, and it's great that I work for the company I do, because any conversation I have all the way up is always like, how's this going to affect our employees? How is this going to impact them? Is it negative? What can we do to make sure it's not a negative impact on our employees? So that is refreshing. And I know some people don't have those environments, because I've been in places where we don't have those environments. So I really feel for those people. But even in that environment where I didn't have that leadership to allow me to do that, I could be the change. I could be the person that, okay, well, let's think about the people and let's have those conversations. But you're right, like, you can get so caught up in the day-to-day, and you can get so caught up in just being busy. Like, I could be in my office and close my door all day long if I really needed to.
Sure.
And I'd still have stuff to do. But again, like, you've got to prioritize things, and people are so important. And so making the time for that is huge. And like, another example, so I have bi-weekly meetings with my leadership set up. We have those meetings maybe once every couple months, right? Like, we really don't have them a lot, but they know that this time is set aside for you. And if you want this time with me, we can sit down, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. And if I have things to talk about, we'll have that meeting. But I also interact with them so often that a lot of times that comes up and they're like, oh, I don't have anything. We've talked about this, or we interact enough that, like, we don't need to have that meeting. But it's important for me for them to know that they have this specific time with me, one-on-one, uninterrupted, no matter what, if they want it, and it's an option. So again, just making the time for those interactions and those conversations to ensure that you understand your employees 100%. So
you've talked about several things that are really important, and I want to kind of focus on a couple of them. You said that your people are your most important asset. There's a lot of companies that say that.
Yeah.
There's very few that live it.
Yeah.
What's the difference between, it sounds like you really truly believe it and live it and show your people that they're the most important asset that Rocky Mountain ATV has.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So I touched on it a little bit. Obviously, making time is a big one, right? Like, making sure they have time for you, you have time for them, and you have those interactions, and it's personal. But I think transparency and communication is a big part of it. And one thing I promise to my leaders, every time I hire a leader, I always have a one-on-one with them. We have a conversation. We kind of talk about expectations and what's going on. And when I look at an asset is important on both sides, the positives and the negatives, right? Mm-hmm. And so that asset, whether it's doing a great thing and you got to tell, hey, this is awesome, you're doing great maintaining that great thing, or it's struggling, and having those tough conversations. And so my leaders and my employees, I don't want anyone wondering where they're at. Like, I don't want anyone to guess. Like, I've worked for a company where you come in after a week's vacation and you're just like, is everything okay? Right? Like, I've been gone for a week and, like, I just don't know how I feel. I hate that. Yeah. I absolutely hate that. And I don't want anyone to feel like that. And so a big part of that asset is maintaining that asset, mm-hmm. right? And so, and I say assets, I don't want to look at these people as things. They're obviously people, but they're an asset, and I want to maintain that. And so the positive conversations happen constantly, and the negative conversations happen constantly. And so I really push my leadership team as a whole that when something happens negatively, that you have to have that conversation, you've got to have that conversation now, right? And I want your employees to all know that, like, if something is wrong, it's going to be said. It's not like something's going to happen wrong and they have to guess, like, am I in trouble or am I not in trouble? They should feel comfortable enough to come to you and say, hey, is everything okay? Or it shouldn't even get to that point. You as a leader should go and have that conversation immediately, right? Like, and they should know exactly where they fall with you. I had an employee that I took over from a department, and this employee, for the first 6 months, he just would stop by my office and kind of like, hey, what's going on? And I could feel that he was worried, Mm-hmm. I could feel that he had that thought. And I tried to I'm pretty transparent. So I tried to just be transparent with him and get past it, but he couldn't get past it. And he was just so worried. And so I finally sat him down and I said, hey, I want you to know that where you are with me, you're going to know at all times. You're never going to have to guess, am I doing things right? Am I doing things wrong? If you're doing something wrong, I'm going to have a conversation with you. And we're going to have lots of conversations about what you're doing right. But you never should come in my office and think, am I in trouble or is everything? Because if you are in trouble, I would have had that conversation already. And if you're not, then everything's fine. And so after having that, you could feel, and he's been with me for 3 years now, but now you can just feel he's so much more relieved, and doesn't feel like he has to walk on eggshells or whatever it may be. So, yeah, I think when you look at assets, you maintain them, right? And you got to maintain them in both ways, and that transparency and that conversation is so important, so that your employees don't have to feel like they don't know where they're at or what's going on.
Right.
And then that personal connection makes it easier, right? Like when you go into those tough conversations or whatever, and you know that their dog's important or whatever, you can have that conversation and lead into whatever you've got to fix and then circle back to it. And it's not just like a disciplinary conversation. It's an actual conversation that's building. They're motivated. They feel good leaving it. They don't feel like they're just, slapped on the back of the hand and then walked out the door. So, but I've noticed having those conversations. Obviously, when you first become a leader, it takes time to learn that, right, and really get good at it. But doing it for a while and understanding that, I can have any difficult conversation with anybody. I'm not scared of it, because I know that the expectation's there for both of us, right? Like I know that I'm gonna hold them accountable, and they're gonna hold me accountable 100%. So.
There's two sides to that coin, right?
Oh, there's absolutely two sides. Yeah. Part of that conversation I have too that's funny is I always tell them, I say, if I ever put you in a situation that makes you feel uncomfortable, or where you have to protect your family or choose to cover me, you pick your family all day long. But on the flip side, I'm gonna do the same thing. So if you ever do anything that puts me in a tough situation, and I've got to pick either, watching out for you as an employee or providing for my family and keeping my job, I'm gonna pick my family, and I want both of us to understand that. And so it creates that level of accountability on both sides. And they should be able to hold me accountable. If I'm doing something wrong, tell me. If you're not comfortable or something's going on, tell me. And I've had a lot of those conversations that I've learned from. And I think that's what helped me get better as a leader, right? Is I got to tell my employees, yeah, you can have that conversation with me, and we can work through this. And it helps me too. Like, I'm still learning every day, so that's good as well.
Excellent. So you've talked a lot about how you do that. I want to know, what is the motivation to truly believe that your people are your greatest asset? I can see from the things you've talked about that they are. Where does that come from? How did you come to the point that you said, without these people, we can't survive?
Yeah, I don't think any business can survive without people. You know what I mean? Like, they're so important. I also think that it's just kind of bred into me. I had a couple really bad leaders through my experience, and I had a couple really good
we've
leaders,
all had bad
right?
leaders.
Like we've all seen the good and the bad for sure.
Sure.
But I think I've learned to love what I do, to watch people progress. Like, that's by far my favorite thing working for any company ever, is having someone come in that maybe doesn't know what they want to do with life, or they might be struggling and going through things, and then seeing them a couple years later, like, move up in the company or even leave the company. You know what I mean? Like, I've had employees come in that are looking for something for a couple years, and they're great people, and they'll work for me for 6 months or a year and a half, and then they finish school and they go off to do whatever it is they want to do. Like, I absolutely love doing that. One of my, I think like the click in my mind was, I had an employee that would walk to work every day, and he'd gone through some stuff. I think he had some substance abuse problems or whatever, and we gave him a chance, and I saw he would walk to work every single day, and he'd come in and he'd be sweaty, and then he'd walk home, and a couple times I'd give him a ride if I could or whatever. But this guy, after about a year and a half, he did really well, and I promoted him into a team lead, and then I left the company. And a couple years later, I saw he was like managing the site, and that for me is so cool. It was like the coolest feeling, even just like seeing him walking to work, and then eventually he bought a car a couple months later because he had consistent income, and then he was like trying to buy a house, and like he would come to me, hey, I want to buy a house, give me some advice, and talking through that kind of stuff. But like, that for me is so rewarding, and I think building that into your employees too, right? Like, I think businesses, a lot of them get bitter when people leave. I think it's a good thing. I want people to leave and talk about how great of an experience they had, because I realize it's not for everybody. I realize people are going to come in and they're going to go, and turnover's not a bad thing unless it's terrible, right? Turnover can be a good thing, especially in a call center environment, right? Like, nobody wants to work on the phones forever. Nobody, and I don't. If someone tells you that, they're lying, and that's totally fine. And so if we can have a good employee for, a year or 2 years, and then they progress and they move up in the company, and they're a better asset for our company, or they do something better for themselves, I'm shaking their hand, giving them a hug on the way out, and telling them congrats. You know what I mean? Like, that is so rewarding to me. So part of it's maybe built into me, but I think it's also seeing leaders like that have helped me see, like, hey, this is really cool, and then wanting to be that same sort of influence on employees.
I think the most successful organizations that I've been associated with have treated their employees that way and said that the most important asset that I have is the hourly associate. They fulfill the promise of our company.
Yeah.
That's the case in your situation for sure.
Absolutely.
Someone comes to your site to buy a part, there's an hourly associate that's going to deliver every step of the process to them.
Yep.
So if that hourly associate does well, then your company does well.
It feeds all the way up. And so we have, like for the call center, we'll do classes, right? And we'll do classes of 5 to 10 people or whatever, and they go through a class, and it's pretty strenuous. It's like 2 or 3 weeks of like a literal classroom, and then we do a couple of weeks on the phone because I really wanted to feel supported the whole way through. I don't want to just throw them into something. But at the end of every call center class, before they're about to like really hit the phones, I tell my call center trainer, I'm like, hey, just schedule like an hour with me. Let me come in for like an hour and talk to these guys. And of course, I'm talking to him about like, hey, you're going to feel overwhelmed. I'm trying to just reassure him. You know, I don't want you to feel like we're cracking a whip because you're going to make mistakes, and that's totally fine. I want you to make mistakes because we're going to learn from them, and I just calm them down. But the last thing I leave with is I always tell them, like, use your resources. And I think everyone thinks of resources as like a computer or a book or something physical, right? But my big thing is like, I'm a resource. I don't generate revenue for this company. I'm not talking to these customers. I'm not the one that's like having that interaction. I'm the one here to support you and to make your job easier and to make it easier for the customer. So come talk to me. I'm just a resource. Your trainer's a resource. Your team lead's a resource. The call center manager's a resource. All these people are resources for you. And if you're just sitting down doing your job and dealing with what sucks, what's a bad process, or what isn't working for the customer, you're not using your resources. And so like, we are literally here for you. And by having that conversation, I think it helps them understand the importance of what they have in the company and that they can bring stuff up. Like the best ideas I get, hands down, to make our company better are always from front entry line employees. They're always from entry level employees because they are talking to these guys every single day and they're having those interactions. And so they know what they like and what they dislike and what needs to change. And so I always tell them, like, you should get, if you have an idea, you get one of two answers. The first answer is, awesome, that's a great idea, let's try it. Or the second answer is, we got to do it because of these stipulations. You know, think of it a little differently and let's try to come up with a different solution, but I like where you're going. And I'm telling you, I have those conversations weekly, and it keeps my task list high. I've always got stuff to work on. Mm-hmm. But that's why our company is so good. Like 100%, that's why our company is so good, because our front entry-level employees are not scared to tell us what we're doing right or what we're doing wrong. Of course, we hear it from the customer, but a lot of times those are tough, bad interactions, which does happen, right? Like no company's perfect. But when the employee has an idea, 9 times out of 10, it's usually a good idea and something's going on, and we've got to listen to them. So that's a huge piece of them feeling heard, for sure.
They're in the trenches doing the job every day.
They're doing it. I'm not. They are.
So here you are at the top tier of the company. You said you had 4 levels that report to you.
Yeah, it depends on where they are, the organization, but yeah.
So you said something that I think is just genius. You don't produce a dime for the company.
No.
You don't do anything that generates income for the company.
No, I don't. Yeah.
There are other people who they provide the money that the company thrives on.
Yep.
So as a resource to those 4 levels of people, you must do your job supporting them.
Yeah.
So that they can
do the job for the customers, right? Like it's a full circle. It's not just me, it's not just them. Like, we work together, but like I said, they're a huge, huge resource. And like, if I'm using that asset to just take phone calls, that's a waste of an asset. You know what I mean? They have way more than the ability to just take phone calls. And so, and I think, again, maybe that's why our employees like it and why we don't have as much turnover, right? Like I think they genuinely feel heard. And I think a lot of them feel like they can stop by my office and talk to me and tell me what's going on. And even though they don't report directly to me and they've got a couple levels between, I always want them to feel like that. Yeah. And it's not only for customer feedback, but I know I've got leaders that need feedback too. And maybe they don't feel comfortable talking to their direct leader or their superior above that leader. And so having a conversation with me makes it to where I can kind of fill all those gaps.
Sure. So let's talk specifically about the call center associates.
Yeah.
How many people do you have in your call center?
We've got, depending on the time of year, we're coming into summer, just finishing up spring, so we're pretty full right now. I think I've got about 75 in there-ish that are taking phone calls.
And then of the 75 people that are in there, how many of them are leaders, frontline leaders?
I've got 7 that manage teams that are like front entry-level employees. And then I've got a call center manager that manages all of those team leads.
Okay, so you've got a call center manager,
Yep.
you've got the team leads underneath that call center manager,
Yep.
and then you've got the hourly associates who actually answer the phones.
Yep. Yep.
So 75 people in a place like that in today's economy with an unemployment rate of 4.25% right now in Utah County,
Yeah.
how do you keep those people?
I think everything we talked about leads into it. I think that's part of it, right? Like making them feel heard. But I also have to cater to my environment. So I have experience in call centers in the past, and some of my call centers have been employees that are in their late 20s and 30s, and they're a little more mature and have some stability in their lives. And so catering to them and understanding what's going to really motivate them and keep them in the day-to-day. In where I'm at now, it's unique because I've got probably 20 of those are like kids still in high school that are working part-time, that love the industry or maybe don't love the industry. They just want a job, right? And it's a good fit for them. And then the rest of them might be in their 30s-ish all the way up to 60s. I got, people that have been, around for a while that are actually on the phones and they love it. And I have a couple employees that have worked for us on the phones for like 10 years and they just absolutely love working on the phones. But as far as like keeping people motivated, I think a big piece of it is, again, making sure that your leaders, my team leads that are over them individually, are having the same conversations, right? Like I really push them, and theirs is daily. Every day they go around, have a quick conversation with their whole team, see how their night was, see what they did, and it's not like, hey, you did this wrong or this has to be fixed. I don't even want you to talk about that. Your first interaction with your employee has nothing to do with their performance. Your first interaction with your employee is, hey, how was your night? What did you guys do? Did you guys hang out? And not only having that conversation, but knowing their families, right? Like you need to talk about their spouse by name, talk about their kids by name. If you talk to them yesterday and they're going to a baseball game today, hey, how'd the game go for Johnny last night? Like that type of interaction is huge. And so I really push that on my employees. And then again, the transparency, but we do different stuff throughout the week and days to try to make it entertaining and fun. I'm not the most creative person. I'm not like one to lie about that and tell you like, oh, I come with all these games. Not at all. My team leads and my call center manager are awesome. Like I'll tell them, hey, it feels boring. Let's do something. What do you guys want to do? And they'll come up with some game or activity, or maybe we'll just do like a barbecue outside and have everybody come out and hang out for the day. But again, I'm not creative. That's not my thing, and which is fine. But I really empower my team leads and my management to like, hey, if you feel like things are stale, if you feel like we need something a little different, or like even if we're just busy and everyone's like overwhelmed and exhausted, do something. So it was like 2 weeks ago. We were just having, well, actually it wasn't 2 weeks ago, it was around Easter, so a few weeks ago, but it's like our busiest week, right? And everyone's overwhelmed. And so I told my team, like, let's do something. So we went out and bought a whole bunch of candy bars and snacks and energy drinks, and they put all these games together and ran some activities through the week for the entire site. Just get everyone engaged and having a good time. We ran a barbecue in the middle of the day, and we came in one morning and donuts for everybody. It's just something to make them excited to get there and feel like they're cared about, because there are weeks where it's tough and we're just grinding to get through the week because it's so busy. And so being there with them and having those conversations. But when you have those weeks and it's busy and it feels like that, I also want to be involved. I want them to know that I understand how you feel. I'm grinding. I'm here as well. So there's times that we're busy. I'll take phone calls. I'll jump on the phone and grab some calls and try to help out the queue or whatever, like whatever we can do to help. But we're all in it together, right? Yeah. And I want them to feel like that. I don't want them to feel like I sit in my office and do nothing whenever they're out there super busy. That's awful. And so when they're busy, I want them to know that I'm right there with them, and so are all their leaders along with it, and we're trying to grind to make it better. So
reminds me of a quote from Warren Buffett. He said, treat your last employee like your finest customer, and they will survive.
Yeah.
Not only survive, but they will enjoy their work. They'll pass that feeling on to your customer.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's exactly the kind of thing you look at.
It is, absolutely. That's customer is the verbiage I use for like my whole team. Look, they're our customers. Just like we expect them to talk nice and have a positive tone and have great interactions with their customers, why are we held to something different? And so like even if you're having a bad day or I'm having a bad day, if an employee comes in, let's switch it. Right? Like we have to talk to them just like we're talking to a customer. So if I'm busy or whatever, they can't come in and me be annoyed. They can't feel like I'm trying to brush them off and get them out of my office. Sure. Right? Like they got to feel like they're valued and they can have a quick conversation and we can move on. Of course, I get some employees now and then that take advantage of it, and I got to be like, all right, well, I got to go back to work now. But for the most part, everyone's pretty good. So
sure. So I'm really curious about every now and again, I'm sure you get people who call in that are unhappy. They have a problem, and it's your fault. It's whoever they answers the phone, it's their fault that they have this problem. What do you do to prepare your frontline workers, the people who answer those phones, for that type of a customer? And how do you help them understand that this isn't about you? This is more about the customer.
Yeah, it's the same thought process as like valuing my employees and the whole dog kid situation, right? It really is that, but it's condensed into a 5 or 10 minute phone call. And so, again, you have to really listen to what's going on and understand where the customers, what's the underlying issue, right? So again, I'm a baseball player. I played forever, right? And I actually had an old employee that was a softball player, and she came up with this analogy, and she said, every call has a softball. Every call has this softball that's being lobbed to you, but you have to see it because there's a bunch of crap around it, and you can hit a home run, but you got to catch the softball and you've got to hit it. And so again, somebody calls in and they're talking about how their kid wrecked over the weekend and they've got to buy parts for their kid's bike because it's wrecked. The softball is not getting them the product. The softball is not taking care of the bare minimums. The softball is, oh my gosh, your kid got in a wreck. Is he okay? Is he feeling all right? And it's the same thing for escalated phone calls, right? Like there's an underlying problem, but you have to be able to talk to them and understand what's going on. So the big thing is the customer is mostly always right? Like there's some customers take advantage of it, but a lot of times there's validity to their concerns. And if we are so stubborn that we're not willing to listen to it, or we're so process bound and stuck to like, well, this is what we do, this is the process, we're not going to be successful. We can't be stuck to a process and fully expect customers to work with us. We've got to work around things. And so I actually had a situation last week where a customer was really upset and he didn't get an item when he was supposed to, and the employees followed the process. And then he was so upset, he escalated and he found my email and sent me an email. And so I called him personally and I just talked to him. We were on the phone for like 20 minutes and he had some really, really good points. Like he was like, hey, this is not okay. Like this process stinks and it really should be changed. And so after having a really good conversation with him, I immediately pulled all my team leads, all my management. I said, hey, here's the situation that happened. This is valid and we've got to fix this and change this. And so I think having those conversations helps them understand like, hey, we don't have to stick to one thing. Mm-hmm. And if a customer calls in and they're frustrated about something, we should listen to them, and if it's valid, let's fix it. And so when those escalated calls come in, I want people to think creatively, and I want them to understand like, hey, we can be flexible and work with this customer and make sure that they're taken care of, and a process doesn't make it to where we can't help somebody, right? Sure. A big thing I tell my employees when I go into the training classes, one thing I'll tell them is you should never, ever leave feeling like you did somebody wrong. If you leave here and you feel like, man, we screwed this customer over, or we should have taken care of this customer, something's wrong with that situation. Because I've worked in those environments where you leave and you just have a pit in your stomach and you're just like, man, I did not take care of that customer. I should have done better, or like the company didn't allow me to do that. And so I'm like, if you ever leave feeling like that, you need to come have a conversation with me immediately, and we've got to figure out what's going on with it. So I think giving them that freedom to realize like, hey, if there's a valid situation, let's take care of it. Of course, there's some customers that, they got their product and they decided to use it and they don't like it and they want to send it back and they want us to pay for everything and get a used product like that. Those are different situations. But again, giving them that flexibility and freedom to really listen to the customer and advocate for the customer and find reasons that we can help this customer. Don't keep putting up brick walls about, oh, we can't help you because of this process. Sure. That's not an acceptable answer. If there's a valid situation or a valid reason, fix it and let's do something about it.
Yeah. So I'm really curious, the frontline leaders, the seven people that lead the call center associates, yep. How do you teach them? What are the skills that you ask them to hone and use in order to deal with the associates who are actually on the phone?
Yeah. It's always a learning process. I think a new leader comes in and you've got the leaders that are overly confident that have a hard time like really getting themselves in the same level as entry-level employees. My biggest thing is that whenever you move up, when someone gets promoted, you're not better than anybody. You just have a different job, right? Like I just have a different job title. I'm the same person. We're on the same level. I just have a different job title to make our company successful. And so I want my front leaders to feel like that. I don't want anyone to ever feel like, man, they're a team leader, they're a supervisor, they're a manager, they're a director, and they're so much greater. No, we are on the same level. And so we do a lot of different trainings. I really push my call center manager to get involved, especially with documentation and that kind of stuff early, because those are so important. You can burn bridges so quickly by having negative conversations whenever you're doing coachings and all of that. And so we really get involved in, like, we'll go through it. They'll do it with us. We'll do these documentation conversations. Same with the positive conversations, because the positive conversations can also go bad if you don't know how to do it, right?
Sure.
And so doing both and showing them how to do it, but then shadowing and making sure that they're doing it the right way and giving feedback. Just like we listen to phone calls and QA our calls for our employees, we do the exact same thing for our team leads, right? So whenever they're taking phone calls, I want to know if are you having good conversations, and whenever we're having documentation things, are they good? But the number one thing I push to them whenever they first become a leader is, I want you to know your team. I want you to know their kids. I want you to know their spouses, their significant others. If they're high school kids, I want you to know what their hobbies are. I want you to know their best friends. I want you to know if they play sports. I want you to know as much as you can about them. Because again, that type of an interaction is really what's going to make them feel valued and want to stick around, sure. Right? But that has gone sour on me before, because then they feel like, oh, well, we're buddies and I can have this conversation, and how do I hold them accountable? So then you come back to the shadowing, right? So I want you to know this person, because I can tell them, hey, every morning go around and talk to everybody, see what their day was like last night and what their family's doing, and to get to know them. And they're pretty good at doing that. Like, for the most part, a lot of them, that's pretty simple to do. But then whenever they get really good at that, the hard part is the accountability side, right? And so that's where we have to get involved and help them understand, like, hey, you can have this great interaction and this great relationship with this person while also having accountability. It's not one or the other. You can do both, and this is how you balance that, and showing them how to do that is really important. And again, it makes those conversations easier, right? Like, whenever you know, like, they've got their kids at home and they're busy and they're late for the 5th time, and you got to do whatever to hold them accountable, to say, hey, look, I know your life's really busy. I feel for you. You know, I've got kids at home. My life's busy. I totally get it. But we also have these stipulations you got to follow. So what can we do? Do we need to change your shift? Do we need to push you back a little bit? Do you need a longer lunch? And like, that opens up that whole conversation that I think a lot of companies don't have, because the employees aren't comfortable having that with a leader, right? Like, hey, this shift's just not working for me, right? Instead, they just leave. And then, like, man, why are we having so many people leave our company? Why is everyone just not, you know what I mean? People are just no call, no showing, and then we don't have employees anymore. Well, they're obviously not comfortable enough to talk to you about something. And so that's a huge sign that something's going wrong. So make them comfortable, make them feel like they can say something, so that you can have those conversations, because it does make those conversations easier, for sure. Sure. So
you touched on a really important part. I worked for a company one time that said, as a supervisor, you don't want to get too close to your people, because you may have to fire that person sometime. So they said, don't hang out with them after work. Don't get to know, what's important to them or that. Just treat them like an employee, and do everything very professional and above board. And I can kind of see some of the logic in that. But I think that's kind of old world leading, and we've kind of gone maybe even in some cases too far to the I care about you as an individual and trying to make everything comfortable for them. And somewhere in the middle is this place where we've got to know our associates well, we've got to know what's important to them, but we also have to hold them accountable for bad behavior. I think that the best way that I can describe that is, as a parent, you can't fire your children. No. There's days when you want to.
You want to, for sure.
There's days when you want to fire your
Absolutely.
But you can't fire your children. You still have to maintain order, discipline, performance, and love, and respect, and kindness, and everything else.
About them. Yeah.
So absolutely. I think there's kind of a similarity between the way we parent and the way we should lead at work.
Yeah. I think there absolutely is. I think you're right. And I think the parent analogy is a great one, because you're right. Like, I love my kids, but I also want to be successful, and I'm going to hold them accountable, and I'm going to push them to be great. And sometimes those conversations are hard to have, and you got to have those, but at the same time, it's necessary. And I think there's still that line, right? Like, if I have an employee that they're a team lead and they're managing entry-level employees, and they have like a best friend, I'm not going to put them in that situation. You know what I mean? Like, their friend gets hired on. I totally understand that. I'm not gonna put you in that situation. And I agree. Like, if you're hanging out with this person every day, okay, maybe we're probably getting a little too close. And so there is still that line, but it doesn't mean you can't get to know these people. You can't talk to them at work and ask about their family and all that kind of stuff. Because again, like, if I were to ever leave Rocky Mountain, it would hurt my heart, because I just like everybody there. You know what I mean? Like, I could probably get paid a little bit less or have a little less PTO or whatever, but I love the environment and I love the people. And so for me, like, that's a huge part of reason why I'm there, right? That balance is so big. And if it was all transactional and I just showed up to work and did my job and left, I could care less about leaving. You're gonna offer me another 10% or 5% of what I'm making, I'm leaving in a heartbeat because I'm going to make more money, and there's nothing tying me there. So you're right. It's a balance for sure. But I think that, don't interact with your employees too much and don't get to know them. I'm not a fan of that. I think that human connection is huge. And I know we've said it for years that like you spend more time at work than you spend at home. And it's true. It's 100% true. And I think the companies that have really good cultures, they understand that and they build and value that for sure.
Yeah. I went into a call center one time and I could not wrap my head around the idea that someone sat there with a headset and for 8 hours of their shift, they talked with people who were not happy about something, or they needed something done, and they're trying to build a relationship with that person and accomplish a task through a headset and a terminal.
In a very short amount of time too. And the people don't understand, like, that call center environment is hard. It is hard. And because not only that, like, you have a short amount of time to build this relationship, do all these things successfully and move on. But in that short amount of time, you not only have to like build all of that, but you also got to understand the customer. Some customers don't want to have that interaction. Some customers just want to get it done and move on. And you have to get those cues within the first 30 seconds, right? To make that successful. And then that customer wants transactional, he or she moves on, and then you got the next customer and they're immediately screaming at you. And they are upset because their item didn't get there the day they wanted it, and they've got something going on, and you're going to ruin their weekend. And there's validity to it, right? Like, I understand. I'm sorry that happened. Then that customer leaves, and the next customer is having the best day of their life. And they just bought a brand new bike, and they're so excited to talk to you about it. And you have to you got to switch back to back through that all day. And then at the end of the day, you got to wipe all of that and you go home to your family and love them and care for them. And like, people just don't understand. Like, these call center employees, they are rugged and they go through a lot. And so again, they're huge assets. They really, really are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that goes back to what we really want to talk about here on the Analog Podcast. We believe that the human skills, the skills that you've mentioned a lot throughout the conversation that we've had here, those human interactions that really make people feel like they are listened to, they are cared for, they're a part of the team, they're important to the well-being of the company. Those analog skills are the ones that I believe people have a tendency to skip sometimes. People get promoted because they're really good at the work.
Yeah.
You have a call center associate that just really knocks it out of the park. So the next thing you do is you promote them to a supervisor, and they may not have those kind of skills.
Yep.
What do you do in that kind of a situation you've just promoted someone? What are the things that are important to you for that person to understand that their job now, as you said, you're not in the same job, your job has changed.
Yeah.
What are the skills that you ask them to develop?
I think the big thing is understanding your employees and knowing that like your job now is to adapt to them. Their job is not to adapt to you. So just like you in the call center, if you were taking calls and you were adapting to every customer and every time they called in they were happy or mad or wanted to be transactional or didn't or whatever it may be, that adaptability, that same experience flows for the employee, right? Like you have to be adaptable to them and you've got to understand how their mind works and what's going on. I've done a few of like the color style trainings where you understand the personality traits. And we have one internally that I kind of put together and I've made, and I have every employee go through that. Every employee gets that training because at the end of the day, your job as a leader is to talk to your employee, build a relationship, and understand how their mind works. And at the end of the day, some of them might want it direct, and some of them might need it sandwiched and given to them in, positive, negative, positive, or however you want to approach it. But your job as a leader is to 100% understand all of your employees and know what they need and then go to them. So we do these trainings continuously. We typically do them every year. And some of my leaders have gone through them 3 or 4 times, but it's always good and it's fun. We make it interactive. But one of the activities I do at the end of every single one of those trainings, I say, write down every one of your employees. And I want you to write down how you think their mind works based on the color skill. And then I want you to write down how you would have a negative conversation with that employee. And I want you to understand each one of them. And then what they do is at the end, they go and talk to their manager and they say, okay, here's my employees, here's how to approach each one of them. And that manager says, yeah, that's a good idea, or that's not, or why would you do this? And really challenges them to talk through that. But that to them, I think, is really eye-opening. And part of the training we do at the very beginning is I have them all fill out a big form and they take their test and they go to corners and they write on a board I have them do an assignment and they write on the board. And it's funny because some mindsets that are scattered, their paper is everywhere and they're sharing it with everybody and the whole team is all over the place and like you can barely understand what's going on. Then on the opposite spectrum, you have a different group that's gotten together and they're very similar and they're very like task oriented and their paper looks great and everything's perfect.
Perfectly organized.
And that I think is pretty eye-opening to them. I think they realize like, man, we think differently, we do things differently, and that's okay, but understanding that's important, because if you go to that scatterbrained person that's kind of all over the place and try to have a conversation with them, that's all these tasks and what they got to do, you're missing the boat. And so you've got to understand them and you've got to meet them where they are. We can't expect them to meet us just like a customer. We've got to figure out where they are, adapt to that, and then make it happen. So that's one of the first things we cover is, building relationships, having those conversations, but then, okay, understand your people and understand you. Understand how you work, and you adapt yourself to that.
One of the biggest gaps I've seen in young leaders and new leaders, and especially people who are promoted, is they immediately have the assumption that I should treat people the way I want to be treated. That's the golden rule.
Yeah.
Treat people the way you want to be treated. And I think that is so wrong, because you need to treat people the way they want to be treated.
Yeah.
And you don't know how they want to be treated unless you get to know them. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah. As a kid, that's what we're always told, right? Would you want that to happen to you? Well, no, I don't want that. So I get it, right? Like, it's totally understandable to have that perspective going in, but you're right. As a leader, it's completely different. You have to understand your people, and you've got to treat them how they want to be treated. You've got to know what's important to them. You've got to know how things need to go with them individually as a person. And we can't put them into categories. We can't assume that they're like anybody else or they're like me. Because like me personally, I'm a pretty direct person, right? Like, if I have a problem, I'm going to go talk to people and I'm going to have conversations. But I've got employees that I cannot do that with. You know what I mean? Like, I've got to kind of slowly get there and, hey, how was your weekend? What's going on? But then I have another employee that if I ask how their weekend is and what's going on, they're like, what do you want? Tell them what's going on. And so I know that employee, I go, hey, this is what's going on, and then we can have the small talk after. Yeah. But they know that if we're gonna have a conversation or schedule something, they wanna know what's up, how they gotta fix it, and what's gotta be done, and then we'll small talk and have a good conversation, but they don't want to kind of weasel to it. They want to get right to it. And so knowing that's really important, because if I were to go to that employee and I were to like, hey, how was your weekend? What's going on? They would be like, I just want to talk about this. And none of that would matter. None of that personal conversation would matter, because they're just so focused on what they have to do and that task that I want them to complete. And so we can get that out of the way, and then we can have these other conversations. And they're way more meaningful at that point. But knowing how to approach that is so important. So.
I always tell people, though, be careful with folks who say, I want it direct. I want to know. I want to hear exactly what's on your mind. Most of them do not.
A lot of them actually don't. Yes, I've learned that the hard way. Like, I just want to know exactly how it is. And they say that because they've told themselves that they're that person for a very long time. But they're in fact not. I've had that exact same situation. As a young leader, they're like, I just want you to tell me. And I told them, and it went bad. And well, what's going on here? Like, I thought this is how you wanted it. Come to find out, they were not that at all. So
I think that gets down to that whole deal. Don't ever assume that people think the way you think.
Yeah.
I think as a young leader, that's one of the big mistakes that I made, is that I thought everybody thought like I did.
Yeah.
They want the company to be successful. They want the job to be done correctly. They had the same motivations that I did, and it's just not even close to true.
Yeah. Again, it boils down to what's important to them. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I love the company. I love seeing us progress. I love like watching the big things happen. But most of my call center employees, they don't care. You know what I mean? Like, they're there because they want to, maybe it's a high school kid that's saving up money to buy a bike, or maybe it's a mom that's just trying to make it through day to day, week to week, and provide for her kids. Or maybe it's, someone else trying to buy a car. And unless I know that and know where they are, I can't assume that, hey, we want this company to be great. And I think that's the problem with a lot of companies, is they expect their employees to be just as invested as they are in the company being successful. And though at the end of the day, that's what it all adds to. But there's steps to that, right? There's steps to getting them, like, what's important to them right now. Because obviously everyone's working for a reason. We're not working because we want the company to be successful. We're working because we want to provide for our family. I want my kids to do whatever they want. I want to provide for my wife. I want whatever it may be, right?
Sure.
And so understanding that motivation then helps the company. But some companies, I've seen it personally, where they just, well, why don't they do what's in the best interest of the business? Why aren't they just going this extra mile because that's what's good for the business? But you've got to relate it to them. You've got to help them understand how it's going to help them individually, and then it'll eventually help the business. But that alignment is so important. So
it sounds tedious, but you really have to do exactly what you just said. You've got to draw that line between the company's success and how that relates to the individual's success. I always say, help people get what they want out of life through the employment they have, and they'll help you get what your company wants.
For sure. And there's sometimes those alignments don't line up, right? Like, there's sometimes maybe the company, and I feel like a lot of times the company's got to make an adjustment to really align with the employee, right? There's a lot of times we have all these, like, we want to do these great things, and we just want the employee to go the extra mile because we want them to go the extra mile. We want them to just put in way extra effort because that's going to benefit the company. But if there's nothing there that's going to help them if they're there to buy a bike or provide for their family or whatever, that alignment's not going to work, right? Like we're just asking them to go the extra mile and do the extra job and not get compensated for it or whatever it may be. And so let's realign this. Let's make this better. Let's come up with a bonus structure. Let's come up with a comp plan, or let's come up with just give them a candy bar or a drink once a week if they do these things. And like things that small can really like all of a sudden shift that into alignment. So now, okay, we're all on the same page. And now we're all shooting for the same goal versus we're so disconnected and these guys don't want to put in the extra effort or extra work. Because sometimes I get it. I've been there before where you're at a job that it's not really your thing and you're just trying to get through day to day, or you're trying to buy this thing, or you're so focused on what's happening outside of work that at the end of the day, you don't care what happens to the company. But if you can make that alignment as a leader to where, oh, well, if I do these things, I get these extra benefits, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then we're all aligned going forward. So most of the time I found it's the company. We've got to realign. We've got to figure out how we can make it relevant to the employee and how we can make it beneficial to where they want to do that. We can't just expect them to do extra things. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. You know, I've learned a lot from you today. I really appreciate you being on the show and talking to us about the way that you deal with your associates at every level within the company. So now, tell me, if I've got an ATV and I need another part for it, or I need something done, how do we get a hold of you? How do we learn more about Rocky Mountain ATV?
Yeah. So Rocky Mountain ATV is one of the largest distributors in the U.S. For parts and accessories. We do sell machines, but our bread and butter is parts and accessories. So ATV, UTV, street, really anything related to off-road vehicles is what we do. We sell all the OEMs, we sell aftermarket accessories, we've got our own brands, all kinds of stuff. But you can see us at RockyMountainATV.com, RockyMountainATVMC.com. And we have a full website there. You can look through products, add profiles, all that kind of stuff. Honestly, it's awesome. We're usually 2-day shipping anywhere in the U.S. Some corners we're 3. We have a distribution facility here in Payson, one in Winchester, so we hit most of the U.S. within 2 days. So it's a great place to come, mess up your bike on a Friday, Saturday, come order on Monday, you'll have it for the following weekend.
So one of the other things I'm really impressed with is it must be a great place to work. If I want to come to work for Rocky Mountain ATV, where do I go? Yeah,
if you go to our website at the very bottom, you'll see a careers link, and you can apply through that. And again, the coolest thing about Rocky Mountain, and I tell all my employees this that come in, we treat our employees really well, right? Christmas bonuses and gifts, all that kind of stuff. That's like standard there, which is not standard everywhere else. But there's so much opportunity in the company. My biggest turnover is losing people internal to internal promotions, which is super cool. It also stinks because I'm constantly hiring, but we're always growing. And like, you want to come in and do welding, we have a whole welding group, product development, website design, graphic design, like graphic printing. It's the coolest place because we do literally everything in there. And it's so fun to be a part of it and kind of see these different aspects of the business and how they all come together. And so if someone were to come in, I have a lot of employees that come in and we're in the call center for 6 months or a year and a half, and then something opens and they go into graphic design, and then they find their passion for a business or a career that way, and they take off and are successful, and it's fun to kind of see them grow into that. But it's fun to be a part of, because I think I've worked for a lot of companies where it's like, okay, you're in retail, so you can move up in retail, but you can move up into different things within retail, or call centers, right? Like I've managed just call centers before. You can be in the call center, but you can be a team lead, and then you can move up to like maybe a call center manager or whatever it may be. But the cool thing here is like, there's so many aspects of the business that you can grow into. It makes it really, really fun to be a part of. So it's always good to watch.
Well, that's awesome. That gives our listeners a good place to go if they want to find a good place to work, Absolutely. Or if they just need a part for an ATV.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So before we close, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who was just promoted to a team leader position, they were an hourly associate, and they were just promoted into a position where they had a group of 12 people that were going to report to them, and they're going to supervise those people. What's the one good piece of advice you'd give them at that moment?
Man, there's so much that you could throw in there. I think my mantra in life and in leadership has just been be curious. And I think it leads into a million different things. Like when you're curious, you don't follow the expectations as far as like, this is what we do, right? This is our policy, this is our procedure. What would happen if we changed that? You know, what would happen if we made things better? Or let me get curious about an employee, or let me get curious about different things. I think the willingness to constantly learn and push yourself to really grow and be curious about what could happen is really, really big. And curiosity in your employees and curiosity in your customers always opens up discoveries of opportunity. It always does. Every time I think like, man, how does this process work? And I haven't looked at it in a while and I'm curious about it, and I look at it, a million things come up, right? Or I look at like employees and I'm curious about them. It always leads me to great conversations with employees and building relationships. And so obviously there's all the leadership stuff we can get into, but if a person is just curious, if you're just curious about the business or the employee or whatever, and you're genuine about it, man, it opens up a world of opportunity for you.
I think that's genius. The more curious you are, the more driven you are to learn.
Yep.
The more driven you are to learn, the more driven you are to always be constantly in that self-improvement realm.
Absolutely. And it keeps things fun. Nobody wants to work in the same place forever and do the same thing. Be curious. Find different ideas, opportunities, change processes, make them better. Have your employees enjoy what they do. That's what makes working fun.
Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys inviting me. It's been great. So thank you.
That's been Analog Leader Podcast with our guest, Trenton Nelson from Rocky Mountain ATV.